Hey pals, how's it going? So I wanted to do something a little different today instead of doing a rap review because I'm not really done with or I don't feel ready to review Wu-Tang yet. So I just wanted to go over not only one of my favorite Iron Maiden albums, but one of my favorite albums in general, which is oh, this guy, A Matter of Life and Death. I'll put that over here. Holy crap. Be warned, I'm gonna fanboy a little bit over this album. Just gonna say that. I mean, if you don't know anything about Iron Maiden, I'm just gonna say that this one is a little different, along with the post-reunion albums, than their 80s stuff, which is their most popular stuff, like Number of the Beast and Peace of Mind and all of that, with their, most popular songs. It just sounds different from the older stuff. The new stuff is more progressive, has longer intros and a lot of parts to each song. I feel this album brought together the melodic strengths of the couple albums before it, like Dance of Death and Brave New World, and has some of their most insightful, and I'm reading off some shit here, most insightful and some of their best written songs, lyrically and instrumentally. I feel like I'm doing a presentation here, but oh well. I think what makes the lyrics so strong in this album is that they're fairly ambiguous on some of the songs, so you can make up your own interpretation. But they all have a through line of themes like religion and war and death and all that stuff. But I like how it's pretty open to your own interpretation, because sometimes when lyrics are too obvious, they're a little corny. So I think that's cool. And also even mixed in some of those more darker themes that were present on their 90s albums, like the X Factor, which I think was really underrated, even though it had a different singer on it. But yeah, I'm just going to go through track by track, and I hope to get some new people to listen to it, because, like I said, it's one of my favorite albums from Iron Maiden. So the album starts off with the song Different World, which, like the previous album, it's a shorter song, more straightforward, punchy, and guitar-driven. And this one has a straightforward message to it about not knowing where life is taking you yet, but it can be viewed optimistically, because it asks you to live in the moment, and you don't know what's going to be happening in the future, so why not live for now? And obviously Bruce Dickinson, if you don't know about him, he is one of the best rock and metal singers, in my opinion, of all time. And in the newer stuff, he sounds different from the 80s stuff. His voice changed a little bit, got a little deeper, but it's definitely more operatic, and it shines through on the first song of the album. It really sets the stage for one of his best vocal performances in Iron Maiden's whole discography. And this song has the first anthemic soaring chorus of the album, which there's going to be a lot of, and the solo is great. Typical melodic Adrian Smith solo, and it's just a great way to start the album. Da 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 da. It's a great riff. Anyway, the next song is These Colors Don't Run. The intro starts off slow, and it sets up the great verse riff, or main riff, and it's the first on the album to bring up the topic of war, which pervades through the album. I love how the song is respectful to a country's soldiers without being too jingoistic. It could be any nation's soldier the song is talking about, and it gives it an inclusive feeling. That's how I look at it. Unlike some of their other songs, like The Trooper, which is specifically about the Crimean War and the British versus the Russians. It's just, so it could be, if you're listening to it, about America or about Britain or wherever you're from. It just captures the feeling of brothers in arms fighting together no matter the reason. And there's also a great sing-along in the bridge. Whoa, whoa. Yeah. And the subtle synths really bring out that part in the middle. But yeah, it's a great song. It's not doesn't get into anything complicated yet. It's going to with the next song, Brighter Than a Thousand Suns, which is, I think, the first literary reference on the album from the book of the same name. Steve Harris uses a lot of books and movies as inspiration for lyrics and stuff, but it's about the dropping of the atomic bomb and the creation of that technology, and how we're basically playing with God with that capability to destroy whole cities and even civilizations. Brings up another theme, which is religion, and how we are basically taking life into our own hands and playing God, like I said. And that's the religion is a big part of this album too. And this song has such a weird time signature too, and interesting like riff, like dan 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 dan, and definitely adds to that progressive, experimental side to their newer stuff. Yeah, and it intertwines great with the lyrics too, to have that kind of interesting, different approach to the usual Maiden riffs and stuff. So yeah, I think it works together to create like a thought-provoking and dramatic song while also staying really heavy. But yeah, after that, it moves on to the Pilgrim, which is a more straightforward song with another great chorus. It's literally about a pilgrim coming over to the New World and escaping religious persecution in England. And I thought that was really interesting how specific it gets to that perspective, and just basically leaving your home and going to a whole new world. So, and it makes a reference to Indians and stuff like that. So, interesting turn of subject matter for this album, but still keeping with the religious theme. And it's more straightforward than some of these longer songs. A good change of pace. And then it moves on to one of my favorites on the album, even though I love all the songs, so it doesn't really matter. The Longest Day, which was set during the Battle of Normandy. The brooding verses work so well in setting the scene of storming the beaches until exploding into another great melodic chorus. And Bruce Dickinson puts on his best storytelling hat, and it's, like I said, one of the best for me, even though the lyrics were probably inspired from watching Saving Private Ryan. I love the middle section with how it goes into a couple different riffs, and another great sing-along portion that's just inspiring. How's that part go? Where it's like dun, 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 dun. It's just like really uplifting to imagine it going behind like this, the beach scene in Saving Private Ryan. There's a video on YouTube where the song is literally put behind Saving Private Ryan, and it fits so perfectly. Yeah, that's one of my favorite songs on the album. Out of the Shadows is basically the middle point of the album, and it slows it down a little bit. I kind of think of it as a Children of the Damned Part 2. And it has some of the most ambiguous lyrics on the whole freaking album. And I just interpret it as someone being reborn and literally coming into the light. If you look at the lyrics, you know what I mean. Yeah, when I looked up some shit about it when I first started listening to this album, way back when, a lot of the interpretations were about reincarnation. It's really up to you to interpret it, which I think is great, so... It has another great Adrian Smith solo. It's a really good dividing point for the album before it gets into the really long parts of the album, which is the second half. And if it is about reincarnation, it kind of flows well into the next song, which is the Reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg. It's a long name. And this one's a doozy if you try to look into the actual story of it. The main riff kicks ass once it gets into it. And I love Dave Murray's solo in this, and the backing track. It's one of my favorite Maiden solos. But it's really, this song's generally about like a horror or gothic story about a guy named Benjamin Brieg, and how he can like see things, or can see ghosts or something, or he's just going crazy. And when they were promoting this album, it was kind of like a big marketing ploy, as they set up a website telling the story of Benjamin Brieg, about this random English dude. But if you take it as an origin story for the band's iconic but supernatural mascot, Eddie, then it really stands out of like this dark exploration of something they really haven't explored, which was an origin story for Eddie, because he's on all their album covers and stuff. So that's I think that's really cool. I don't know, it adds to the lore of Iron Maiden, and I'm just kind of nerding out right now, so... Yep. Then it moves into For the Greater Good of God, which that one is the most overtly religious on the album. Obviously ties in war again. It's just a reflection of someone questioning human nature and our adherence to widespread violence and conflict, even though we try to live holy lives. But it's another epic, dramatic song, and the guitars create that feeling. It's... Yeah, with like dun, 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 dun. It's really interesting how a lot of these riffs, yeah, are different from what they're usually. It's not just power chords. It's kind of exploring more on their fretboard and kind of adds a lot. I can imagine there being an orchestra behind it, even though there isn't. Like, it's very symphonic sounding, and I'm kind of glad they didn't go into full on symphonic metal and then just let the guitars be on the album. So that's another reason why I like the riffs. And it has another great chorus, obviously. And Bruce just, I don't know how they came up with these choruses when they were writing it. Yeah, epic song. Then it moves on to The Lord of Light, which I think takes a lot of influence from stuff like Paradise Lost, and it takes like a sympathetic view of Satan and his initial followers. It's also from a viewpoint of one of those followers who was trying to argue of like a hypocritical God, and that people should question, authority. If you were to point to a song that would say that, oh, Iron Maiden are Satanists, I think it would be this one, not something like Number of the Beast. But I just look at it as a story. I don't think they're Satanists or anything. It quite literally makes arguments to turn your back on God. So, God, when that verse riff kicks in, it just melts your face. Yeah, it's a great riff. And the chorus is just, again, great. I don't know what else to say. I'm just going to keep saying that. The choruses are great. And then the middle part, I love how it slows down. Bruce starts talking of one of those satanic followers trying to convince the listener to turn to the so-called light, because Lord of Light roughly translates to Lucifer or whatever. And then I forgot to mention that the drums are also great on this album, because then after that part, the drums kick in, and it's like really heavy. Die-hard Maiden fans always think back to Clive Burr and think he was a perfect fit for the band, but Nico he just sounds massive on this album, and really drives most of the hard-hitting parts on the album, and just the songs in general. It really is some of his best drumming in all of Maiden's discography. I'd put it up with like Somewhere in Time. I don't know, I think it fits perfectly. As they age, they obviously get a little slower, but they still sound great on this album, all of them together. And then it closes everything together with the legacy. It starts off slow with those clean guitars and the synth again in the background, which kind of lends it another symphonic kind of feel. And then it kicks into the verse. Again, brings religion, war, and all that together. But the verses are kind of split up. Like, the first part tells a story, then the outro just kind of closes everything together. The first part, I look at it as kind of a fantasy, where this Hitler-like leader is dying on his deathbed or whatever, and then someone gets to scold him for sending his own people off to war and lying and deceiving his own people. That's what I like to think of it as. And then it turns more general in the outro, closing everything together literally, and it closes it up with this almost desperate plea for a better world, with a glimmer of hope for humanity that we can turn away from Armageddon. But it really ties all the themes together. And and obviously the instruments are great on it. It has that middle riff where it's kind of hard if you've never listened to it to imagine what it is. Just to close it up, this album isn't for everyone. It's long, and it takes some patience to listen to, and it's not like their other stuff, like I was saying, but it's so rewarding because the musicianship is top notch, and the stories throughout the album are thought-provoking and engaging. This album just holds a special place in my heart, and I just wanted to, talk about it a little bit, and hopefully try to get more people to listen to it. And the album sounds great. I read that the band forewent the whole mastering process because they liked how it sounded unmastered, and that basically most of the songs are played live in studio, and that's what's ended up on the album. So it sounds great, and it's not overly compressed like some of these newer albums can sound with the loudness war and all that. And Maiden got a lot of pushback for playing the whole album live because it's super long and people just want to see the classics. But I'm telling you, I'd give my left nut to see this album played live in its entirety. But I missed it when it came to my city in 2006. So yeah. I could talk about this album forever. Like I said, it's one of my favorite albums. So if you're a metal fan or not, I just suggest checking it out. And like I said, you might enjoy it. It does take patience, but I love it. And yeah, I just wanted to do a different kind of video for today. I'm going to try to get that Wu-Tang out probably next week, their first album review. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. See you later. Cheers.